Zack Gelof, very exciting. Ever since he came up, almost every game, it feels like he does something. Something different every game. And I hate to say it, but seeing enough generations, I'm already putting him in the Mats category, either an Olsen or a Chapman. Am I a little premature in doing that? But on the other side, what are you seeing in him as a baseball player and maybe a potential cornerstone of your team in the future?
Yeah, it's not common for a guy to hit the ground running the way Zach did. I mean, I think even with those guys you're comparing him to, there are ups and downs. Matt Olson, I think, got optioned 6 times the first year he was in the big leagues. So it's pretty rare that someone comes along like Zach who, homers in 5 of his first 9 days, really doesn't have that blip.
Right.
And it's a great sign for things ahead. The other thing that he showed was leadership as a young guy on this team. Obviously, everybody on this team is young, just about. But he came up, he showed leadership with his work ethic, with his words in the clubhouse, the way he, treated other guys who came up around the same time. I think comparisons are dangerous and maybe not fair to the player, but I love the ceiling on this kid right now. Not too much more to say about his bat. I think that speaks for itself. Is he always going to be a second baseman? We moved him around in the minor leagues partly because he has some arm issues. I think he's taken really well to second base, and it looks better on that side. And we kicked around the idea of him in the outfield, whatever. But he's played really well at second, and it fits our roster right now.
Esteury Ruiz got to the record he was seeking, Kenny Lofton's rookie stolen base record.
He didn't get the base, though. He kept trying to take the base. And they wouldn't let him take the base from that game.
It was a road game, I guess. Yeah, probably would have billed the A's for that.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway? And again, you said before, this is not new to him.
Right.
He did this last year at the minor and a little bit at the major league level, but for him to do it on this stage, and all things considered, with the setback of the injury, still very impressive.
Really was.
He could have got to 80 if he had the full season.
No doubt, and it's a really exciting skill. It's something that can change the game in a way that very few other players in the big leagues can do.
Yeah.
Obviously he had his ups and downs in terms of offensive performance, and ultimately ended up playing more in the corner than center field once Lawrence was here. So there are things about his game he needs to work on, but it is a game-changing ability that is really valuable.
Now, when you say things to work on, I'll ask from my own selfish perspective, but also from the fans. When he came back from the injury and he wasn't in the starting lineup, and obviously you had more players to choose from, you got to get Butler some time out there. Was the reason he wasn't an everyday player after the injury, or what was going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you expect a certain amount of production out of the leadoff hitter on base, and he wasn't hitting for power, he wasn't taking walks. Those are sort of the basic things, and then ultimately he settled into more of a routine, not only playing against lefties, but the roster had changed a little bit, and I think those things were addressed.
And I just feel like looking at him, we're talking about maybe him getting better as an outfielder. He was a converted shortstop, right? Yeah. So things like that, getting the walk rate up, those seem like small things that he's definitely capable of remedying and improving.
No doubt.
I can't wait to see what he becomes in 2 to 3 years.
When you put a guy like that in center field strictly because he's as fast as he is.
He's an athlete,
But there's a lot of nuance to the position. And like you said, he came up as an infielder. Speed isn't going to make up for everything. So whether it's positioning or jumps, these are things that ideally you don't have to learn at the major league level, but that's where we are right now.
When you signed Trevor May last offseason, it seemed like maybe you didn't know exactly where he'd fit in. Obviously, somewhere in the bullpen.
Yeah.
Did you ever think that he'd finish the year, even after missing a lot of time, with 20 saves?
Well, I will say that our pitch to Trevor to come here was that there was not a set closer and that this was a possibility that he hadn't had in his career, and I think that was attractive to him. Look, I think after what Trevor went through in the early part of the year, for him to have come out of it healthy, saving games in pressure situations, and then also acting as a mentor to his teammates, I thought that was a huge win for everybody this season.
Brent Rooker also got to a nice milestone number. He got to his 30 homers. And even going into this season, players like himself made the roster. You made the decision to part ways with Christian Pache. And we're thinking, all right, we know Christian, we know how hyped he was, but here's Brent Rooker, here's a Ryan Noda, who I know we'll talk about too. Really kind of validated the opportunity that you gave to somebody like Brent Rooker to hit 30 and to be an all-star?
No doubt. And well, Rook doesn't need to validate the decision. He's worked really hard.
Yeah.
But anytime you claim a player on waivers
Yeah.
who hasn't stuck in the big leagues, there's going to be questions. And I'll be honest, like that decision came down to the last day of the Bay Bridge series.
Wow.
Whether we were going to keep him. He has an option. So it wasn't clear he was going to make the roster because I don't know if you remember, he didn't have great at-bats in those games against the Giants after a really good spring training, and we were kind of wondering maybe if the stage was too big for him, and clearly it wasn't. He went out and had an incredible year, got hot in April, and then made adjustments as the season went along, and we were so thrilled to see him get that 30th homer.
And as he picked up the pace at the end, he talked to us pretty openly about it, that at one point he was struggling, starting to doubt himself, and that really the best part of this year for him was not even the start where he was successful. It was the end, because he got it back.
Yeah, to get through those struggles. And he talked, they made him make a speech in the clubhouse when Kotz told him he was an all-star, and he talked in that speech about, finally feeling like he belonged in the big leagues and how much support he got and how meaningful that was to him. Because when you're a guy in that position and you've gone through different organizations, you've bounced up and down from AAA, there's always that doubt, I think, as a player, and if you can overcome that and make those adjustments, I think that's a real huge step.
If I'm looking at all the players that Billy Beane and David Forst have brought in over the last handful of decades here, I feel like Ryan Noda is a textbook Oakland A's player. Why are you laughing? I didn't even get to explain it yet. On base percentage, sure-handed defensively, but man, draws the walks, just finds a way to get on base 2 to 3 times per game. However it is, what impressed you about his rookie season?
Just how much he was able to be himself and be the player he was in the minor leagues at this level, because guys always want to change something. They feel like they have to do more or be something different. And we told Ryan very clearly in spring training, just be yourself. Just do what you've done to get here, because that's the guy we took in the Rule 5 draft, the guy who has an incredible knowledge of the strike zone, the guy who gets on base, the guy who has the power that we saw a handful of times. So the fact that he was able to stay true to what got him here was really impressive.
And I hate to keep doing the parallels thing to past A's players, but Gelof to the Mats, I feel like Noda is similar to Mark Canha in his Rule 5 situation, but somebody who came in and just instantly provided something with the bat or offensively.
Yeah,
it does kind of feel like
it's
that.
A totally fair comp. And we've thought about that all year because they both came out of the Rule 5 draft and because they both have those sort of typical A's skill sets.
Now, what do you do about a guy who broke his jaw, right, during infield practice?
Unbelievable.
This is not a hockey team. This is a baseball team. That's not supposed to happen.
He broke his jaw in pregame, went out and hit a double and a homer,
right. and then realized afterwards.
Had to go on the IL.
Oops.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Talk a couple pitchers here. Mason Miller, just the velocity, so impressive, and the injury so unfortunate. A couple starts and then missed most of the season. You guys worked him back into getting back, obviously, on the mound. Is it just the easy 100, or is there something else about him that makes him special?
It's more than the velocity. It really is. I think there's a work ethic there. First of all, I think our medical staff did an incredible job getting him back to where he was at the end of the season. We knew this was part of the deal with Mason. He had injuries in the minor leagues. Essentially he does something I'm not sure his body is built to do in throwing that hard, and he's always going to have to battle that. But there's a breaking ball, there's command, there's sort of this low pulse that allows him to kind of compete out there. And I said this after the season, like his talent is so immense, we have to find a way to keep him healthy out on the field. Whether that's a starting role, a relief role, whatever, we'll figure that out, but we have to try and keep him out there.
I love that you said low pulse, and I also look at his mechanics. They're so simple. A lot of pitchers that are getting to that velocity are reaching for it.
Right.
They're really exerting
themselves. There's a high effort in most guys.
It seems like it's easy. Like he pulls it out of his pocket.
It's an easy 102.
And the reason that you guys wanted to bring him back, I suppose it could have been just a shutdown season.
Yeah.
What was the thought on bringing him back?
Look, any innings he throws in 2023 allows him to get extended more in 2024. We always have this idea you can't build yourself up too far beyond. So, it was that. It was also just the confidence for him of getting out there, of throwing multiple innings and knowing that he physically could do it.
I know I said pitchers. I forgot Lawrence Butler before, so I'm going to go back to one more position player. Impressive. I got the chance to talk to him. We did a 7-minute interview and then like a 45-minute just ad-lib chat. I mean, what a great guy. What a great clubhouse guy. So I see that part of it. How about from the on-the-field side of it? Makes loud contact. maybe we didn't see everything that he could do this season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And the way we talked with Esteury, there are things to work on. I think Lawrence's game is still developing, but man, has he come a long way. I mean, this was a very raw talent out of high school who went out to short season Penn League and hit 160, and we were thinking, hey, maybe it's not in there. Yeah. But I think he kind of made himself into what he is. He had a little chip on his shoulder during the pandemic season when he wasn't invited to the alt site, and I think he put that to good use and really has come a long way from the guy who, we've said this, was an A-ball basically 12 months before he was in the big leagues.
Well, he's got the physique of a tight end, I think, so if outfield doesn't work, he's certainly athletic enough to do other things. Okay, back to the pitchers. J.P. Sears, from somebody in the rotation who got to actually start the season and finish the season, stats and success aside, and by the way, his splits month by month were such a roller coaster. I think just a full season, and the definition of it, is probably his biggest accomplishment.
No doubts, yeah. To go wire to wire, a guy who isn't particularly big in stature, and I think the knock on him coming over here was maybe he wouldn't hold up as a starter over a whole season. He did exactly that. And guys are going to have their ups and downs in terms of performance, but he was, from opening day, our most consistent guy, and that's really, really an impressive thing for him.
Joe Boyle had us on no-hitter alert for a lot of innings one day, and I think it's rare that I would ever say this after somebody's only first three big league starts, that he's in the rotation next year, and I know you're probably not going to say that, but wink, wink, nod, nod, my goodness. He set a bar for himself here. He made a name for himself here, and in retrospect, you made the trade for Sam Moll with him in Cincinnati. Did he even exceed expectations of what you thought you were getting back?
Yeah, no doubt. I don't think we knew he'd be in the big leagues by the end of the year. I think we did a lot of work on him. Our office group did a great job breaking down his command issues in the minor leagues. We had some good scouting reports, and fortunately we had the experience with Luis Medina 12 months earlier, a guy with a great arm, great success, but needed to be cleaned up command. And if you look at those two guys on paper at the time of the trades, incredibly similar. And the fact that we had the success with Louis that we did in the big leagues gave us some confidence that maybe there was something in there with Joe to unlock. But I certainly didn't think it was going to be in the big leagues this year. And you're right, his 3 starts have given him a leg up when he comes to the rotation talk for 24.
Paul Blackburn, another arbitration year. Hopefully everything works out in that fashion. But this past season, I think the biggest takeaway I'd have from him, beyond the frustrations of the lingering finger injury, games he started, the team had a better than 500 record. And considering the overall team record, that's a drastic night and day.
It's meaningful, no doubt. And I said we missed Paul the first 6 weeks of the season, just not having his experience, his sort of reliability of going out there for 5 or 6 innings. And it was unfortunate, he got the blister and the broken fingernail, just these little things kept him off the field, but he's really developing. His experience is valuable. He's become something of a leader of the pitching staff, which, again, he hasn't been here all that long, but what he has passes for experience right now, and we need that.
I just named a bunch of players with kind of success stories from this season. I won't name some others who did fine, maybe, or met expectations, or maybe were slightly below them. What do you say about the group of players that you're still waiting to emerge and you still want to see a little bit more from, and that you hope that next year they bring something new to the table?
Well, I think there's a lot of room for improvement here. I mean, I think, we are trending up. We have a group that we can count on, but there's plenty of room for guys to continue to get in that mix. This is going to be a young group for a while, and that is, it's volatile, it can be frustrating, but it's also exciting because there's sort of no idea how high they can go.
Right.
And that's going to be important as we go into 24, looking at some of those guys you mentioned who maybe didn't make this list right now, but the potential is still there, and there's a group of them in the minor leagues still to come, and who we feel really good about. I'm going to go down to the fall league soon to see a few of them, and it's an exciting time.
And when you're calling up this volume of players, not all of them are going to, when I say hit, I don't mean offensively, they're not going to hit exactly as you expect or liked. I mean, that's just part of the equation, right?
Totally, and that's why I said Zach's a little bit the exception to the rule right now. These other guys who are going to have their ups and downs, there's still a lot of runway for them to get better.